to say, like, I think it's a super nice idea that there are many cameras and that people also can kind of take them with them, or I don't know. There are suddenly multiple ideas possible. So I think it's a super nice idea. I'm very curious how it will evolve also. And I mean, of course, the dangerous part is that you will have hundreds of hours of film. So I don't know how you're going to deal with that, but okay.
Hier heb je net iets meer plaats voor nodig. Naar huis gaat.
Ik kan hier nu al op zitten.
Dat het zo goed is dat je eigenlijk als je dan thuis komt zoiets denkt van shit, dat is eigenlijk helemaal niet zo'n goede wc die ik thuis heb.
I think when you have this do it in your backyard mentality, you don't have to go on far trips because it's constantly around you. You will not be fuck, I have a bad day, fuck. I never go on vacations, that you're complaining.
Ja. Dat zijn van die tongsticks, hè? Don't burn your tongue, man.
Then you are not complaining anymore because you are thankful for what is already there.
Maar aan 2 ogen had ook genoeg. In Brabant wel.
No, don't got so much to say, but nothing to say. Let's go. Took me a couple of days of just walking around and didn't really know what the plan was, and then I was just I'm just going to buy some wood and I'm just going to start building. Just start building and see what I can come up with just by doing it. It's always a good idea to just start working, and then the first 2 things you make you throw away because they're shit, and then you go from there.
It's really about the unlimited space you have without regulations, without rules. Yeah, it feels like after a few weeks you've been pulled underwater in this creative pool almost, you know, and it's also very addictive, you know. So that's why it also suddenly Everything around you doesn't really matter. It's strange. It's like a time capsule, real time capsule. So it also pulls you in when you're here for a long time.
It's not the first time, huh?
No, no, it's not. It's actually the 9th time. Art is also a lot of practice. It's a lot of trial and error. It's, you know, you only see the end result. You don't see the whole part in the studio, you know, where people are also struggling and don't know it and trying things out. I'm always fascinated by this industrial architecture, so I thought, what happens if you just change the lines? Suddenly you see something else, you know? So I built it like a whole room full with these columns, and then after a few days I just came back and thought, no, this is not working, it's ridiculous. So I just cut it in pieces, and there were again building blocks. And then after a while I found the right composition, and then I started to add another layer, which was the light and the shadow. So then I also decided to paint the shadow on the wall, which was an interesting step, because then you have another layer which is going up and which represents the sculpture flat on the wall. Whole different dimensions, I would say.
Why do you do this?
Why do you do this? Actually, you can really see it a little bit as a travel. I see it a little bit like that, as an expedition. Like, I don't have a structured life at all. So in a way, it's not so different than the things that I sometimes do. You find so much treasures. It's like treasure hunting the whole time. It's like piles of rubbish, and you just go through and then you find something special. My eye found lots of blue things, and maybe because it's a shampoo factory. So lots of containers and jerrycans and shampoo bottles. It's all blue. Ties heeft ook. Ja, want dit is het raam. Of had je met dat raam gekeken? And it reminded me of a cyanometer. And a cyanometer, it's invented in I think 1760. It's like a ring with blue on it, all color gradients. And for me that's fascinating, because I always want to kind of measure the world in some way. And I made a line with all the gradients of blue, but I use it actually as materials for making rings from the jerry cans, and this is from paint or from the shampoo bottles. In a way, it was about measuring the blueness of the sky, but I make 3 rings. One is measuring the blueness of the sky, one is for measuring the blueness of glacier ice, and one is for measuring the blueness of the sea. And then I decided to paint the rain gutter, the high rain gutter. I paint it now in all these gradients of blue. If you are looking from the courtyard and you look up, you can see this line, and you can see what color actually is at that moment the blue.
Something like that, I don't know, there's a test. When I go into my photography mode or video mode, like on long walks, I don't take photos of people or something. I always look for places where there are no people, and I see even just infrastructure in general, houses, street rows, traces of human existence. Well, I'd started off this animation thing quite a while ago, around 8 frames per second, so it's 8 photos per second, and so you need a lot to get to a minute even. And I was walking around, actually my back was hurting, so I was bending over going up the stairs, and then I saw these small punch cards. And I just loved those, and so I started finding more and more and more and more and more, so I just collected all of those. What I look for there is patterns or regularities or things that repetition. And my point inside it is that every single one of them is different. It's just like a fingerprint and a thumbprint. The meeting of analog and digital, something that's about mass production, but then there's something really organic in the differences of the punch cards themselves, and then in the decaying of the punch cards at the same time.
Say that again?
I have a performance. Then I catch the sunlight in a mirror. Then I can give it to the audience.
I think with the kind of work I'm doing, I'm able to give insight, energy and attention to all this mess, this chaos, and then you see you can make a beautiful garden out of it. I become the ghost of the people who worked here. That's whom I'm going to perform. I could become the identity, the total identity of this place. How I look at my work, it's it's always a story. I love stories. That's why I quit my chemistry study. Because I love the stories of all these professors and guys who did great inventions, but then beginning to do analytical chemistry, being no professor, I made my choice, like, okay, let's go for being professor in visual chemistry. Yeah. So it's kind of flower power, huh? That also is what I'm doing here. Flower power is needed for harsh things. We put flowers on graveyards. I put flowers on a swastika to give the yang to the yin. Eh? Sound is great.
Ik ben in Nederland de Dutch Bushman, hè? Maar ik ben toch in Duitsland de Deutsch Bushman. Want dan kan ik in Duitsland weer andere dingen doen die de tribal people in Nederland niet doen.
Dan wordt het toch de Deutsche Waldman. Why come here? I have a passion for spaces that are already there and not wanted anymore or not used. So I was attracted to a space that is quite dark and has a lot of stairs and elevators that don't work. And I wanted to bring in the light. It's like peeling off layers. If it's not functional in that way, then the whole space is not useful anymore. So trying to peel it off and see what happens. Cutting everything away what was in the way of the window in another space. What I discovered working with that is that we don't create space. The way to see it, sometimes you need boundaries to see what space is there. We don't leave a lot of space just being space. I think a lot of people do the same in their lives, like over-consuming or wanting too much. I think we have a lot of chaos in our own lives. It's good to just slow down and make it simple. How can I inspire some simplicity to people in these spaces? How can you tap into that?
For everybody, the starting point is different. they find interesting things that fit their fascination. But for me, it's very basic aspects of the architecture. For me, it's always inviting to go through the space and just continues going through the building. And therefore, or the way perspective is very apparent. So there's these columns that are in one row or two rows actually, and there's this specific rhythm and this specific pattern that just emphasizes this idea of space. It makes it into a tunnel. And in one way or the other, there's always been this idea of going into a spiral. So what I'm doing really is copying the columns and tilting them to one of the phases that is this spiral.
In 2011, I broke up with my boyfriend. I felt really not good, and then Gijs, he was laying with me the whole time. And then one day he came back, he had a mouse. It was a gift for me. From that day on, for at least 2-3 months, he brought me every day things that looked like mouses, like long branches or a leaf with small branches. All long tail-like objects found on the rooftops. Gijs, his kidneys are not working anymore. And the vet told me he has only maybe a few weeks. I was thinking like, yeah, I don't want to leave him behind. But also I cannot let someone else care for a dying cat. But the thing is that he likes it so much here, so he found another way to live for. When I was sick, he was bringing me gifts. So now he is sick, and now I try to every day give him something special that I find or that I think he needs. And it feels like, yeah, he's doing very good.
Doing art in your studio or doing something in your studio at home is just not the same at all. Especially if you want to work with audio. Working with acoustics in the building, these buildings are great for that, you know. And at a certain point I also realized that there was quite some water going into the building. It's kind of like a big sieve, you know, and all the water comes down and that kind of opens it up, you know. It's very conductive. So I use it as a conductive element. An open circuit really, you know, that's as soon as water hits it, it starts making a sound. It's just a couple of very simple touch synthesizers. Touch the thing and change it a bit. The idea was to see this place kind of like an open circuit, you know, that you can get into with your hand actually and with your body. Yeah, connecting the circuit again, you know, making, and that would create like a pitch change or a pitch shift or in the sound source.
There's a sort of sadness to these buildings in a way. I mean, you see that there was a lot of history, but it's all torn apart. Like, what is this room? You know, what happened here? Then I saw that there was a lot of paper, personnel, archives. If you make paper out of that, it's very simple story already is there. You make room for new archives. From there on, you start developing, and the whole process just starts to have its own life, and you just have to follow the story, basically.
Well, nothing is linear in my life. Yeah, it's funny you start about it, because I've been thinking a lot about it lately, going through all kind of ideas and well, just looking back a lot. Changing concept and styles a lot, and also just stopped doing art for a while because I really didn't like the art world anymore. This one is stronger. They categorize art in a certain way, and yeah, personally I'm in between a few different art worlds anyway, and none of them really understand what I'm doing because it doesn't really exactly fit in. This is all a-fake. We got some nice macho over here. I don't know how it will work, but maybe 1 or 2 suits. Yeah, we are in this old soap shampoo factory. There's a lot of these empty bottles of shampoo. So I thought, okay, I can take these shampoo bottles, turn them into markers, and the brand name on the bottle, that will be your alter ego, your avatar. So when you're writing your name, it should be the name on the bottle. So I've got bottles like Susan G, and Macho, and Alpi Fresh. Graffiti writers, they all use these alter egos, different names. And when I had these markers, it was kind of logical to also visualize these alter egos. So then I started making these outfits, or actually masks, for these fictive characters. But I need some extras, so I was thinking about just hanging them from the sides, make some, I don't know, it's too symmetric, it needs a bit more tribal feel. So it's still related to wall painting, or the scene of the culture of wall painting. So it all fits in with what I've been doing.
Perfect.
it's not only what you see, it's also you can do something with it. And that was last year really amazing, that people came in because of the building. It was open for the first time in 30 years, and people were even crying. Then there was a woman at the end of the day. I was sitting there super tired, and she said, "Are you one of the members of this crew?" And I said, yeah. So I was the woman who closed the fence 30 years ago. I was the last one. And she said, "And look what you're doing." I said, "Look, around you, all the people are smiling. And this is what you're doing." That's the side effect of this whole project. I just hope that somehow people get inspired, because we are inspired by it too.
But maybe they get more respect for the people just doing stuff with empty buildings, creating something with the possibilities which are there.
Du hängst ja auch dran an der Vergangenheit. Ja, du hast ja das damals miterlebt, alles. Du warst drin in der Fabrik.
Die versuchen, was draus zu machen.
Aufgewertet wieder.
Damit war das Interesse weg und damit waren die Arbeitsplätze weg. Zack, war schwierig. Bin ich ehrlich, es ist schwer, das als Kunst jetzt zu sehen.
If you know that, okay, these are places that are wounded in a way, it's not just about you then. It makes you careful.
Human culture is such a rich source, that the human mind is such a great gift to all of us. Perfect make-believe is better than reality.
Viele tun sich schwer, normales Leben mit Kunst zu verbinden. Man muss sich die Zeit nehmen. Nimm dir die Zeit und du schaust ein bisschen anders.
There's just so much to be learnt there and so much to be seen there. The way things fall apart. And to be able to trust that things come back together again anyway, or there's new orders that create themselves.
Das ist ja richtig schön. Das ist ja schön, das ist ja toll. Das ist ja fantastisch hier. Den Blick hat hier keiner. Herr Stölzen, haben Sie einen starken, die lachte nun, haben Sie einen starken Haarwuchs? Einen starken, haben wir schon alle gelacht. Ja?